My friend says caffeine's a drug. I said, oh, tell your friend, fuck you.
I don't want to be a buddy, but just want a little breakfast.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Breakfast Pants Podcast, a podcast about weird shit, DIY punk and trashy movies. Brought to you by Sham City Roasters and Deadbeat Donuts. From Hastings, I'm Siobhan.
And I'm Dave. And on this episode, we're going to be doing the second part of our Secret Rulers of the World episode. So I would say if you haven't listened to episode 11, you should probably go back and listen to that first, because this is just going to be a continuation, really. We're also going to be, thankfully, this isn't a continuation. We're going to be reviewing Two-Headed Shark Attack from 2012.
So this week we have eaten some delightful food because we finally ventured out of the house and went to a cafe. Woohoo! Which has been actually really nice. We went down to St Mary in the Castle here in Hastings. They've got a lovely cafe. They're a really cool building. It's like a It's built into the side of the cliff.
It was
it's
a
got
church
crypt
of some sort, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
We've never been in the back. It's crazy. We've been here like 5 years. We've never been in the back.
Because
they
they've
put
got
gigs on and stuff.
Yeah, that's it. They've got a big hall, haven't they, for events and stuff. And they've got a crypt where they put up their restaurant and cafe bit as well.
We did eat in the crypt once on Halloween.
But yeah, we went there and they do a lovely vegan kind of breakfasty thing. Some scrambled tofu on toast, and avocado on toast. We sound very, I don't know, millennial horrors. But, not that either of us are. But
I mean, we both
am
are.
I a millennial?
We both are.
Are we?
I am by a year, and you are like you are a proper millennial.
Oh, am I? I don't really understand
like
this age definition.
What did you think you were? Out of
I don't know. I don't know. Well, I wasn't born in the millennium, so I thought that was
That's
when you were
not
born.
how it works at all.
Is it when you were like
It's
experiencing the world?
It doesn't really make any sense. It's kind of when you can't. God, I know too much about this, so this could be the whole podcast. But it's kind of when you come of age, but it doesn't really make sense. Millennials start, depending on who you ask, either in 1980 or 1981 or 1982.
Oh, and you say 1980.
No, but that is one of them.
Okay.
But
and you're not the only one that
says
says
I am
that.
on the. I was born in 1980 for the listeners, for the ladies and gentlemen at home.
For the ladies.
So not for the ladies. Certainly not.
Certainly not.
But so I'm an Xennial.
Oh.
Which is a mixture of Generation X and Millennial, because I'm on the cusp.
You are? Okay.
And it is an official term.
Okay.
People, I think it's between 78 and 82. It's people that are confused by computers.
You are confused.
But also capable of using them. That's my
Ooh.
understanding. It's much deeper than that. But I don't want to go on about it for ages.
Well, I've seen you edit this podcast. It's questionable whether you are capable of using computers. Actually, no, you are, definitely. Just don't delete it. So anyway, back to St Mary in the Castle. Delicious
Very
breakfast.
delicious, yeah.
We've just been in the sea for the first time this year as well.
Yeah, so we're both feeling a little bit like, I think,
woozy.
a bit hippie-ish.
We've had our avocado on toast, our scrambled tofu. We've been in the sea.
How Xennial of us.
Oh my gosh.
But thankfully, we've got some caffeine to try and
Yes.
perk us up so that we'll actually make it through the next 16 hours or however long this
No,
podcast is
I promise
going to
it won't be
last.
that long.
So on this episode, we're drinking a Hardlines coffee. Hardlines are a coffee roasters based in Cardiff in Wales. And we're drinking their House Party Single Origin Brazilian, which is kind of like a medium roast, and it's very delicious.
Very smooth.
And
very
hopefully
smooth.
it's going to fill us with caffeine and make us capable of doing this. But before all of that, something else which I think will wake everybody up is the first song that we're going to play, which is by an amazing band from France. They used to be based in Belgium, but they've just moved to France, called Matrak Attakk. It's from their new album, What the Fuck is Under the Spotlight, which is out via 12 DIY labels. 12 different labels have put this album out.
Wow.
But you can also get it direct through their Bandcamp, and most of it's up there now. I think when I was chatting with them, I think there was still a couple of songs that they hadn't actually put up yet, but I think it's all there now. It's a fucking brilliant album. So this is Matrak Attakk, and the song is called Psychiatria Assassina.
this Thursday.
Breaking news is part of this job.
You are fake news. This is what's happening in your world tonight.
It's fucking news.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Punks podcast. My first piece of news is frankly all about me, so I'm just going to kick off with a bit of a Dave update. So first of all, Sham City Roasters wise, I've just released a new cold brew concentrate. We used to do cold brew a couple of years ago, and we were always doing it in the cafe, and it always went down really well. And I was sending it through the post, but Royal Mail managed to smash it a lot. So so after a while, I just gave up on the fucking thing. But I've worked out a way to actually send it through the post successfully now. It's got different packaging, yeah. And also we've changed it up a little bit. So we used to do a cold brew that was just like you could just drink, but now we're doing a cold brew concentrate. Each bottle's got 500 mils in it, which is basically 10 sort of espresso strength shots of cold brew. You can use that to do lots of different things with. You can just make really delicious cold brew by mixing it with water, but you can also make espresso martinis. You can do all sorts of milky frothy shit with it if you want.
Milky frothy shit, delish. We love an espresso martini down here. What's it called, Fest? It's like the drink of choice on the second and third day.
I think that's called having a hangover, but also wanting to get drunk again.
No, but it's the most wonderful. I'd never had one before until what's it called, Fest? I think the first year we went. And just looking around on the second day and watching all these crusty punks drinking espresso martinis at like 1 p.m. I was like, this is very unusual, but it's definitely become a routine for that festival every year, which I love.
It was totally different, but Pie Race, they have. I feel we might have talked about this on the podcast before, but they have espresso tequila.
Yes, no, isn't it? Coffee Sam. Oh, is it tequila or Sambuca? It's tequila, isn't it? Yeah.
And fuck me, that's good as well.
And Bloody Mary shots.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, what are these festivals doing?
Well, this is how you've got to get through. I mean, we're not getting any younger, are we? We're all exennials.
We're not getting any younger because we're drinking espresso martinis and
over 3
Bloody
or 4
Mary
day
shots
periods.
as the recovery drinks.
Anyway, we're all looking forward to getting back to that once
I can't wait.
lockdown's over, let's be honest.
That's going to be lush.
So also, just another thought that I had about Sham City Roasters, which I don't think I have mentioned on the podcast at all, is that this morning on the way to swimming in the sea, I dropped in some coffee to Wow and Flutter. Who are an amazing record shop, and they have a little cafe area, and they serve my coffee. So I just thought I'd give them a shout out and let everybody know that if you are in Hastings and you actually want to go and drink some Sham City Roasters as opposed to buy from us online, you can go there.
Go say hello to Tim and Susan.
Yeah, and also buy loads of records from there because it's a fucking great place.
Oh, they're so cool. And
one very quick piece of Dave news. My old band, The Dead Anyways.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah, we're definitely not juggalos.
No. Although you did play with a Juggalo band once, but anyway, enough said about that.
We did play with the Juggalo
Enough
band
said about
once.
that? I don't know. Let's say about that.
I can't remember what their name was.
No, they weren't called Twisted. That's...
Was it the Insane Clown Posse?
Weren't you a gathering of the Juggalos?
Anyway, we did admittedly play with the Juggalo band, but anyway, we're not playing with the Juggalo band on this.
They had a zebra pink carpet that they laid down.
And they did.
Anyway,
only one of them was a Juggalo though. The rest of them looked like normal boys, and then there was just one who got full. More normal.
Apologies, they might be listening.
More normal than the clown boy that was at the front.
Just the one clown boy. Anyway,
I've actually remembered their name, but I'm not going to say it because we've mocked them now. So the Dead Anyways were offered a gig, and we haven't played a gig in, I think, about 4 years. We put out an album 5 years ago, and that was the last time that we were fully active. That album actually very recently has been put up on Spotify, so if anybody wants to check us out, you can go on Spotify and look up The Dead Anyways. But we are reforming for 2 gigs, one of which hasn't been announced, so I'm not going to ruin that. I'll save that for a future day. But the second one, which could well be the last ever, I imagine, is going to be on the 11th of December, and we're supporting Culture Shock in Hastings at Crowley's. And there's another band playing that gig as well, who have confirmed.
Yeah.
What's that other band, Siobhan?
They're called Comeback Clip.
And tell us about Comeback Clip, would you?
Oh, gosh. So, me and some of my buddies have finally decided to try and be in a band, and it's quite hilarious.
You're not trying to be in a band, you're in a band.
Yeah, technically we're in a band. We haven't played any gigs yet.
Everyone's only technically in a band.
But yeah, so we've got some gigs confirmed. We're playing the basement show for What's It Cool Fest, which is going to be our first ever gig.
And it's also going to be fucking insane because it's sold out. It's the basement and Nosebleed are playing.
Oh, stop telling me that Nosebleed are playing.
And also
Bitterman.
Bitterman, who we played on this podcast. Actually, we played Nosebleed on this podcast too.
Oh my gosh, some real musicians, and then we're going to be prattling around at the beginning of that. Can't wait. And so we're playing this Culture Shock show. We're playing something else as well, but I can't remember what it was. I think it's another Toxic What's It
You haven't played a gig yet and you managed to forget some.
Oh, we're just so fully booked.
I think it's not been announced yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow, with a big surprise on one other gig. Maybe they're holding out to see if we can get our shit together for the basement show. Who knows? But that's going to be exciting, terrifying, and all of those emotions in between.
So that's going to be a proper Breakfast Punks extravaganza at Crowley's. I know some people will probably think that, most of the crowd will be there to see Culture Shock. But I think it will be mostly a Breakfast Punks podcast celebration.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. People will be chanting our names as they walk in. So there was a festival that got postponed last year, as did pretty much everything, called Cruel World Festival, which is an 80s alternative festival that's going to happen in LA. And it's just been confirmed for 2022. And it looks amazing. I'm glad that I've finally seen it. It's the day before your birthday next year, Dave. So get prepped for going to LA.
Well, I mean, this is going to be brilliant because on the last episode we talked about Lollapalooza and how we didn't know a single one of the bands. Yeah. And now you're going to bring up an 80s alternative festival and we're going to be like, oh yeah, wow, they sound great, yeah.
I'm fucking excited. So there's some really good things, but first of all, the big poo-poo on the festival is Morrissey's headlining.
Oh, okay.
So that's, horrendous. But, it's in Pasadena. We're going to need to leave early to get back to LA proper.
Yeah, but all your money's going to Morrissey.
Well, I'd like to think hopefully will go to someone else. Because there's Bauhaus, Blondie, Devo, Echo and the Bunnymen, Psychedelic Furs, Violent Femmes, The Church, The English Beat, Public Image Limited, Berlin, Missing Persons, who I'm actually, they're quite low down, but I'm very excited that they're there. Christian Death, and The Damned have just been added.
And 45 Grave is the only band that you ignored.
I don't
They're
know
an amazing horror punk band. They're on the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack.
Oh, are they?
They're fucking great.
Oh, yeah, they are. Sorry, I just had to look at the poster that's on the wall.
That's fucking great radio.
Yeah, I know. So that sounds amazing. The tickets are going on sale this week.
Oh,
so
hold off.
Dave...
Go down. Cold Cave as well.
Who's Cold Cave?
So Cold Cave is it's someone from American Nightmare who are like a hardcore band, right? But doing really nice, twinkly synth music.
Oh, nice.
It's
I think we should go to that for your birthday next year, just saying.
We can't give Morrissey any of our pennies.
Oh, I know, but everyone else is so deserving. So...
I can't believe Missing Persons are still going. I can't believe The Church is still going. You would think there's very little... I mean, Christian Death, I think the lead singer from Christian Death is dead.
Oh.
I think. Isn't that Roz somebody?
2 people got dropped off. Gary Newman. Boo.
Oh.
I love Gary Newman. Why is he not there? He's not there because he's doing his own tour.
Oh, good.
Fuck them. He's going on his own. And Mark Almond.
Oh.
And he's off because he'll be doing a new Soft Cell record.
Gotten hold of my heart.
That is a terrible...
Oh, no, that's Gene Pitney.
Who is not on...
Well, he's long dead.
Oh, is he? I don't know who Gene Pitney is.
Gene Pitney's not on this 80s alternative festival.
So anyway, I really want to go to that festival. It's your birthday next year. Give it some thought.
Cool. I'm not going to see Morrissey.
We don't have to. We can leave early.
Well, just a quick one. The Garbage Pail Kids franchise is headed to HBO Max as an animated series, by the looks of it. The Garbage Pail Kids, as I'm sure everybody knows, is the 1980s trading cards, the gross-out trading cards that I used to like when I was a child, even though they were banned in my school and you weren't allowed them.
They were banned at your school?
Yeah, which of course made them far more desirable. I don't know very much about this animated series, but it's going to be headed by Danny McBride, who's the guy that made Eastbound and Down and has been in loads of different comedy films, and a guy called David Gordon Green, who apparently... made the Halloween sequels, which were horseshit. But anyway, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But also, writing and co-creating alongside those two is a guy called Josh Bicel, who I can't say I know, but he was involved in Solar Opposites, which is the...
Oh, that's good. That was the... was it Justin Roiland who did
Yes.
Rick and Morty? That was his other thing that he did. I guess he did it with that guy.
There's a skinhead pissing in a bush outside our town.
Is it the same one that was throwing up into a drain the other day?
No, he was talking into a drain. He wasn't throwing up.
I think I found his socks.
Oh, good. Right.
But yeah, Garbage Pail Kids.
Garbage Pail Kids is great, yeah. Yeah, so it's only been announced that this is going to be happening, so who knows what it's going to be like. It obviously runs the risk in 2021 of being absolute dog shit, because I'm sure they're probably going to make it all CGI and horrible. But equally, Solar Opposites I thought was great.
Yeah, Solar Opposites is really cool.
Danny McBride's pretty cool, and so it has a chance of being alright, so I shall be keeping an eye out for it, probably watching it.
Keeping a close eye. Fantastic. Keeping up with our frequent wrestling features that we seem to do. AEW have had a pay-per-view since we last recorded an episode of the podcast. It was Double or Nothing. And so I figured we would just have a little recap of if anything was good on that.
I thought it was really good. There was only one thing that let it down.
Yeah, there was one absolute horseshit thing, which I guess was one of the big draw. Well, what they said was going to be one of the big draws, but it was awful.
It was one of the big draws. I mean, I was looking forward to it. That's probably what I was disappointed by.
No, I thought it was absolute crap. Basically, Chris Jericho's got his lovely little faction called the Inner Circle, and that was against MJF's faction called the Pinnacle, and this was going to be their Is it their last face-off? I don't really understand.
No, they've had one match. Blood and guts.
Blood and guts.
And Chris Jericho got thrown off the top of a cage.
Oh, yeah, he dislocated his
into a large bed.
Elbow. Yeah, into a bed.
You know. And then this was the sort of rematch to kind of even the score.
And it was still, if they lost, the Inner Circle would break up.
That's
It's
right.
that sort of shenanigan going on.
So they were always going to win.
But what, annoyingly, it was like a redo of a Stadium Stampede match they did last year. So last year, when there was no audience allowed, because it's basically filmed at a place called Daly's Place, which is part of the Jacksonville Jaguars football stadium.
Yeah.
So they went out into the stadium and did the match across the entire stadium, jumping out of the seats, and at one point Adam Page is riding on a horse chasing someone, and Matt Hardy's chasing someone else in a golf buggy, and it was amazing.
At one point Matt Hardy got put into a pool, and then he kept coming out as different versions of himself. There was a lot of weird shit.
Was
in
that one?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So there was loads of nonsense. It was really good fun. But then they kind of said, oh, we're just going to do it again. And I was like, I was wary. You thought it was going to be good.
Well, I've got a feeling that now, because Double or Nothing is kind of AEW's biggest pay-per-view, I think.
Yeah.
Or, one of the bigger pay-per-views. And I think by the looks of it, they're probably going to do this every year at this thing as a kind of... But I don't know how, because it requires large teams of people to be have beef with each other.
I just didn't like it because this was the first pay-per-view where they had a full audience, and yet most of this match is pre-filmed.
Yeah.
And they do the last bit in the arena, and actually with only two of them. It was Sammy Guevara against
Sean Spears.
Yeah, Sean Spears. The two of the not so interesting ones, if I'm honest.
Well,
and then the rest of them,
cool.
yeah, he is quite good. But then the rest of them just walk in once the match is over. So it's a bit like, oh, well, that was really pointless, and it was the big main event. So that was poo.
I think it's very weird that it was the main event, like you say, because it was the first time that fans were back, which is probably the really important thing to talk about. Is that it was, I think, the first wrestling event, even including WrestleMania, because WrestleMania didn't have a full capacity.
No, it didn't.
They actually had a full capacity of this thing, and it did completely revolutionise watching the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it was just because having got so used to
that
watching,
silence in the background.
And we've talked about this before. AEW did that a lot better than a lot of the other places, in as much as they had they had wrestlers around the side of the ring, and they did bring fans back socially distanced for a long time. But there was nothing like when people came out and there was just like a massive roar.
Yeah,
it did just immediately make it 10 times more exciting than it has been for the last year and a half. So it was very strange to then do a pre-filmed backstage match as your main event.
Yeah, I thought it was just the
really
weirdest
boring
choice
for the people in the audience.
Well, they would have just been watching it on a screen the same as people at home were watching it, which I think is a bit of a
But also they did it in such a shit way, I thought. I mean, all the different parts were considering they'd been pre-filmed, they all look so shit. There was a bit that was supposedly in a bar,
Oh yeah.
Where like 4 people all had a big fight in a bar, but the bar was so obviously just like an empty room with 3 tables
with like a purple light in the background.
Yeah, and just like a DJ that turned out to be some old wrestler.
Yeah,
and like a couple of people sat at the tables looking surprised that people were fighting in there.
Yeah.
And then there was another bit where that guy Sean Spears is they call him the chairman because he's hit someone with a chair before, and so they obviously had
which everyone does. So I really don't understand why he's anyway.
But there was a bit where they went into a room and he was just, and it was obviously the room in their stadium where they keep all the chairs.
Yeah.
So they obviously thought to themselves, "Oh, this is going to make a brilliant like visual. Let's have the chairman sitting, and it was this huge room full of chairs." But they just did it in such a ridiculously dramatic way that just didn't work. And I just thought the whole thing just looked awful.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those cinematic matches or whatever they call them, I haven't seen a single one that really worked that well. There was that one
Undertaker, AJ Styles.
I was going to say the same thing, yeah.
That was good. Mainly because Undertaker was really good and accidentally broke a window right at the beginning and gashed his arm open.
But I mean, that just looked like a movie.
Yeah, that was
so
good.
And it had like really high production values. And I think where AEW have gone a bit wrong with the times that they've tried to do it, and sometimes they've been alright. I thought the last Stadium Stampede was alright. Because they were mostly...
But that was good because they stayed in the stadium.
Exactly, they were just on a football pitch.
Yeah.
And like someone jumped off the bars of the goal. The American football goal.
I think Kenny Omega put someone through something really high up.
Yeah.
Like he jumped off the chairs onto the next stadium down.
And there was bits where they chased each other with a golf buggy that were kind of like funny then. But they tried to do it again and it was just a bit shit.
Yeah, no, it's poo.
But I think the rest of the thing was really good.
What was your favourite other match?
I loved... So, okay, here's the other one to talk about. Sting...
Yeah.
The icon Sting, who is now 62 years old.
Is he 62?
Yeah, he's come back and he had a tag team match with this guy Darby Allin, who's pretty cool. Against some fairly boring men, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, who are apparently, their tag team is called the Men of the Year.
What?
Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. They've never made that clear.
But the great thing about this match was that, in the run-up to it, Sting's had one sort of match, but it was another one of these cinematic-type matches. Yeah. And so, obviously, they could get away with him not doing too much. And he did do a bit, but it was probably filmed a lot of times, and he was made to look good. So this was the first time he was having a proper match that was just, like, in front of people in the ring. And... there was just a brilliant bit at the start where he comes out and, like I say, 62-year-old Sting, and you're thinking, God, is he going to be all right? He's taken a couple of moves here and there in the run-up to it, but not really. And the first thing he does is go up on the rampway, pull his T-shirt off, and, like, jump.
Oh my God, he does that huge leap.
It probably wasn't that crazy high, but it was probably like a 6-foot jump or something. Yeah. It would have been a jump that would have worried me, and it was just like, and the crowd just went fucking bananas when he did that. And that's the sort of wrestling that I like.
Yeah.
When you're sort of really rooting for someone just not to die, and then they come out and they really do something good.
Please don't die.
Yeah, and then he was great. I mean, he looked. They were sensible about how much they used him. He spent most of the time... It was a tag team match, so he could spend a lot of the time outside the ring. But when he was in the ring, he was working. Brilliant. Yeah, really, really
And he was in the ring more than I thought he was going to be, actually. So, good for him. Yeah, I like him. I never watched WCW, so I don't really have any history of Sting. Yeah. But I am quite excited about him all the same, because he's come back and he's really interesting and he's really good at talking, so...
And I think he's a nice man.
Yeah, he seems really nice.
But other than that, I thought the first 2 matches were fucking brilliant. Adam Page against Brian Cage.
Yeah, no, that was good.
It was good. But then the really good one was Young Bucks versus John Moxley and Eddie Kingston.
Do you think?
Oh, I thought it was great. I thought everybody just played their roles really well.
Yeah, no, and to be honest, I pretty much love both of them. I think the Young Bucks being arseholes at the minute is really working. Especially for Nick, because he's the one that I've never really thought was any good.
Well, he's grown a beard and now they look like twins.
And now they really actually look the same, but like he's really good at being like this bougie arsehole, which is what they're playing at the minute.
So I didn't know them then, but apparently when they first started maybe, or at least early on in their career, they were always heels.
Oh, really?
And so I've only ever known them as sort of being like the proper fan
Christian
favourites.
boys,
And now, so I think this is probably... I think they're probably quite comfortable in this role. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, they definitely seem... He definitely seems like way good like this. And then I love Moxley and I really quite like Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, Eddie Kingston's great, yeah.
Very funny. I really liked the Kenny Omega, Orange Cassidy and Pac three-way.
Well, I feel like that was like the proper main event, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the main event, actually. And it was mainly good because I think they allowed Orange Cassidy to pin Kenny Omega twice, but through whatever reasons it wouldn't count.
We should probably explain Orange Cassidy.
Well, I could explain him with some like arm movements.
No, but you're on the radio.
Yeah, I know. I can't. He's this amazing character who he's billed as coming from. No, he's
wherever.
He comes from wherever, weighing whatever. Because basically, it's a guy that doesn't care. He wrestles with his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
He wears these aviators that he
sunglasses,
sometimes takes off, and his like big move sometimes is to just like pathetically pretend to kick people. And that sounds really shit.
It does,
but it's so weirdly great to watch, and he's definitely like. I think people were surprised he was going to be a favourite because he used to just come out with Best Friends, which are two fully fledged tag team wrestlers, and he'd just be their like kind of friend that came out. When he rolls in the ring, he rolls under the bottom rope very slowly. I don't know. I can't describe him. You definitely have to go and just watch him.
I think so.
Wrestling.
Yeah, I think like in the indie scene, he was sort of like a comedy guy.
Yeah.
But the thing with him is he doesn't do anything, but he's actually really good. So every night, it's quite a clever thing.
Yeah.
So he does this. One of the big things that he doesn't do it so much now, but he used to like do little kids just like do a really soft kick on someone's
and they'd be like, whoa!
leg, and then the whole audience would go, whoa, yeah. And it kind of works. You have to watch it.
But then he would follow it up with like crazy amounts of like running across the ring and jumping off of ropes, but with his hands still in his pockets, which is actually really impressive. But anyway, he gets to pin Kenny Omega twice in this match. Kenny Omega being the person who's got 4 different championship belts from 4 different promotions at the minute. So it's quite a big deal, and through refereeing mishaps, it doesn't get counted, and therefore Kenny Omega ends up winning. But I thought it was quite good to have given him quite a showing.
I think they see him as kind of he's such an odd wrestler to be like, but I think they see him as being one of the next big things. He's so like the crowd fucking.
But
goes
that's
crazy
why because he when he first came out, he didn't wrestle a match for about 4 or 5 months. He just used to walk out, and then because he got such a load of cheering, they put him with Chris Jericho really early on.
He beat Chris Jericho.
Yeah, and he beat him. Yeah. So he's really cool. We've talked about wrestling quite a long time, but I think everyone should go and watch AEW generally because it's really fun.
It has been really good recently, I think, and I will say like their pay-per-views are really, they're always really good.
Yeah.
Sometimes the storytelling could be slightly better.
Yeah.
But when it gets to that point, they always do a really good job of just finding people that you don't really know who's going to win, and there's like an element of excitement to it.
Yeah, I would say the storytelling's kind of fallen off a bit, but the matches themselves are actually really good. Yeah. Whereas I find in some of the other promotions, maybe the storytelling's a bit more interesting, but the matches are absolutely bullshit.
Well, I don't think it is actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, WWE is just fucking dead on its feet. I think.
Poo at the minute.
Well, from I always say this after wrestling, from one piece of high culture to another piece of high culture. This is another quick one, really. A filmmaker called Beth B, who is an original no-wave filmmaker from New York City from the sort of late 70s, early 80s, and has been making films ever since, is going to be directing a documentary about Lydia Lunch, which is called The War Is Never Over. It's coming out on June the 30th. And will be available online, I think, via New York's IFC Centre.
Okay.
Which is a cinema which serves David Lynch signature coffee.
Yes!
That's all I can tell you about.
Yes!
Oh, did we go there?
Didn't we see that film that's really red?
Suspiria. We did.
Yeah.
That was good, wasn't it? We did that really red film, Suspiria.
Yeah, we went there. Oh gosh.
Yes. So anyway, you'll be able to watch it online. Lydia Lunch is an amazingly interesting character. She's absolutely fucking brilliant. She's mostly known just under her own name. She's a poet. She's a singer. She's an actress. She does a podcast now. She does loads of stuff. She was originally in a band called Teenage Jesus and the Jerks, who I happen to have been listening to quite a lot recently. It's again, they're kind of part of the no wave scene, so it's really like discordant, sort of pulled apart music. It's not quite punk, but it sort of is punk. It's probably more interesting than punk. Went on to influence stuff like post punk and that sort of stuff. But like I say, she's just done absolutely loads and loads and loads of stuff. She's been in loads of really interesting things. So I would definitely check out almost anything that Lydia Lunch is in. But her life, unquestionably, will be very interesting. So I think this film's going to be absolutely brilliant, to be honest. Beth B and Lydia Lunch have known each other since, I think Lydia Lunch was like a teenager. And I believe she starred in a few of her films. Starred isn't the right word.
Featured.
She's been in some of her films back in the day. The film's going to feature loads of really interesting people, including Alan Vega from Suicide, Hubert Selby Jr., who wrote Last Exit to Brooklyn, Nick Cave.
Lovely Nick
from
Cave.
Nick Cave. And,
From Nick Cave.
And Sonic Youth from
Aw.
1991, the year that punk broke. I think that's all.
To be honest, Thurston Moore is in pretty much every documentary ever made.
Yeah.
Or at least all the ones we watch.
Although, ironically, he's only a complete cock in the one that's made about him. And speaking of cocks, I think it's now about time for a bit of Norfolk news.
Oh. Morning all right out there?
Morning all right.
Morning all right, how you
Morning
doing?
all right
Is
to
everyone
you.
all right out there? My Norfolk accent is getting worse every week, but we're going to have to
Ooh.
go with it. Yeah, fuck knows what's going on. This week, I would say it's been a bit difficult navigating the EDP website. Not because I'm just rubbish at it, but because it's mostly who's been arrested, and the A47's got loads of backup on it. Loads of traffic that keeps seeming to make the news. So finding stories between all of that has been a bit hard. But I found 2 minor league stories I reckon we can...
2 minor leagues makes a major league.
Well, that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard, David. So my first story for you lot is titled... Man admits stealing underwear and sex toy in burglary. I mean, that's about as exciting as it gets because they've decided the case is so odd that it need a pre-hearing report writing.
Oh.
So he hasn't even gone to court yet. He's still sitting there in jail for all this burglary, I believe. But yeah, he admitted to stealing some underwear and a sex toy in a burglary.
Did he steal anything else, as far as you're aware?
It doesn't say what else he stole. It sounds like it might have just been for those things. What a dirty little perv.
It does sound just like...
Well...
It would have been terrible if he thought there was money in there or something and he just grabbed the first thing he found and it just turned out he opened the wrong drawer.
Just found a dildo and thought, well, fuck it, a bit of run.
Yeah.
The dog's coming, or whatever.
You might get a couple of £2 for that.
On the black market. But the other thing that really took my interest this week, which I thought was interesting, was men defecate in couple's garden before running away. A couple saw 2 men lurking in their garden the day before.
What?
Day before, they spotted 2 men just hiding in their bushes and thought, what's that pillock doing there? And the next day they went out there and they saw the same fellas. And so they chased them off again, but this time they found human waste along with toilet paper. So these fellas scoped out their garden the night before for whatever reason.
This sounds very fantastical,
Doesn't it?
if you don't mind me. This sounds a bit like a conspiracy theory. It feels like 2 people have seen some men, then found some shit, and then put 2 and 2 together and made 5.
That man's done shit in my garden. So the woman who came across the human waste but does not want to be named, methinks you protest too much shitting in your own garden.
So what's your theory? Do you think that she just took a shit in her own garden?
I reckon she's done a poo in her own garden,
Right.
and these men have seen her,
She's blamed it on them.
and she's blamed it on them because her
Oh.
husband's come running out, going, I just saw 2 men looking in our garden. What could they have been looking at? And she goes, oh, I don't fucking know. I think they shit it. It certainly weren't me.
That's what I say about everyone that I'm questioning about. I think they just shit it.
Well, there seems to be this home and waste here, and I don't know where it come from.
There was
But
that
they were-
skinhead outside pissing earlier.
That's true.
He's probably. I tell
But
you
then-
what, he'll be in the Hastings National.
But then
News.
she said, because the day before, her and her husband have both seen these pillocks in their garden, and then
Right.
she's gone out there for a cheeky poo for some reason, and he's come out and gone, oh, what you doing? And she goes, oh, I just thought, you know those pillocks that were here yesterday? Well, look, they must have come back because there's this poo
Did they
with
find-
toilet paper that we don't own. That's
did they
definitely not
find
our
the men?
brand.
Can you find people via DNA if they've? Because there could be like a sort of Judge Judy type of
Poo DNA.
thing where they do the DNA test on the poo, but then it turns out that it's actually her.
Dun dun dun! We've done poo and A, and we know it's you.
Poo and A.
We called for the police, and they sent out a team. Despite looking for them with their torches, they didn't find
For the love
them.
of Christ, what a fuck! I mean,
That's all very creepy. We wondered if they'd been using our garden as a hideout to watch something or someone else.
Well, ironically, the grass is probably going to grow much better now. It's got shit on it.
That is what most of the comments said on the EDP Facebook page.
Oh, God, I bet those comments are special.
Let's see if... So special comments. What's the address? Number 2?
Oh, God.
Standard practice in Attleborough. And then
where?
Attleborough.
Is that where it
that's
was?
in Norfolk.
Oh.
I saw a woman not from these parts bob down and wee in King's Lynn on the pavement during the daylight. Let's move past this poo story and play some music.
Enough poos.
Enough poos. Let's have some music. So the next song we're going to play is from a band called High Praise, and the song is called Dissolve. High Praise are a band from Brighton, and this song is from their new 7-inch, which is called Spirits Crushed. It's available to pre-order now from Crew Cuts Records in the UK and Blind Rage Records in the US.
Crew Cuts Records, by the way, are doing some wicked stuff at the moment. They just released a gel or gel, I'm not sure how you say it, 7-inch, which is fucking brilliant.
Nice. Did we play them before?
No, I tried to, but they ignored my Instagram message.
There we go. I knew I'd heard of them.
But thankfully, High Praise didn't.
There you go. Thank you, High Praise, for getting back to us and allowing you to play us to play this. So this is High Praise with Dissolve.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Punks podcast. We're now going to move on to our main topic of the episode, which is going to be our second part in our discussion of the TV show The Secret Rulers of the World. Like we said earlier, if you haven't listened to the last episode, you might want to go back and listen to part 1, because I imagine that we'll be referring back to it a little bit. Mm-hmm. The Secret Rulers of the World, if you did miss that episode, is a 5-part documentary series which was produced by John Ronson. John Ronson also wrote a book to go along with the series, which was called Them Adventures with Extremists. Both are absolutely brilliant, and would really recommend both reading the book and checking out the TV show. The TV show is all available on YouTube. I put it in our last YouTube playlist, but I imagine that I'll just stick it in this one as well. The series was first shown on Channel 4 in April and May 2001, so it came out literally just before the attacks on the Twin Towers, which is sort of important, I think, because the subject matter is basically about people that believe that there is a kind of cabal of very powerful people that secretly run the world and are influencing governments and world policy and what have you. As we said last episode, it's quite an interesting thing to look back on now because obviously it's 20 years old. So I feel like conspiracy theories have very much come to the forefront of our society in current times. And there's a lot of things which are extremely similar about this show, but there's also an awful lot has changed. And some of these conspiracy theories have kind of warped and found themselves into, frankly, the American presidency at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things that's quite interesting about it. Also, John Ronson is just an absolutely brilliant writer and an absolutely brilliant journalist and a brilliant producer of TV, and it's a really entertaining series. And he has a really interesting way of dealing with these really extreme characters, which he sort of faces along the way. So in the last episode, we covered parts 1 to 3. Part 1 dealt with the legend of Ruby Ridge, in which a family was shot by the FBI and the CIA, ostensibly because the father had tried to sell a gun to an undercover police officer, and everything just went completely fucked up. And then we covered David Icke and his ideas about 9-foot lizards that rule the world. And then we covered Timothy McVeigh, who was the Oklahoma bomber who blew up the
Murrah building
in Oklahoma. So now we're going to cover parts 4 and 5.
So I'll start with episode 4, which is about Bohemian Grove. It's called The Satanic Shadowy Elite, ? So John Ronson meets up with this radio host called Alex Jones, who we'll talk a lot more about in a minute because he has continued to gain followship? Listenership? I don't know. A following?
I mean, people are following. Maybe
a
that's
following
a modern term
/ listenership. A fellowship. There's a fellowship, isn't it? No.
Yeah, there is a fellowship.
Maybe he's got a fellowship. Anyway, totally unimportant. So he meets up with Alex Jones, who we'll talk about a lot more in a minute, who is one of the main people who believes in this conspiracy theory about a place called Bohemian Grove, which it's said that it's where a secret elite meet and make decisions about the world without any public scrutiny. But whilst they're at it, they also get involved in some pagan ritual with a big effigy that they burn in a giant stone owl. And the conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones believe that this effigy may or may not be, but probably is, a human sacrifice. And they think all these big leaders of the world, some of which have been George Bush, Henry Kissinger, and anyone who's come to presidency. Tricky Dicky.
As David Icke calls him.
Yeah.
Tricky Dicky.
Richard Nixon, for those who don't speak David Icke. Believe that they make all these decisions where no one can see what they're talking about, and whilst they're at it, they burn babies, essentially. And David Icke thinks he's got proof in the way of pictures. So when this happened, there's a few people that have been... but it's very secret. No one really talks about it. And this has led conspiracy theorists to believe that it's definitely evil. And it's definitely they're covering something up. A few people have come out and maybe shared pictures, but there's not a lot known about it. So that's why Alex Jones has decided that he needs to infiltrate and unveil what is going on, including this human sacrifice he so believes happens.
And he does infiltrate. And he does. And he makes a video. But so there's a slight discrepancy in a way between the book and the TV series in this one, because in the TV series it appears as if Alex Jones and his little friend
cameraman
Mike Hansen, who's a very funny little bloke, they infiltrate Bohemian Grove, and it appears in the TV show as if they agree that they're gonna
just walk in
and sort of dress preppy and look the part, and they're just going to walk in. Because
a lawyer who they meet with has done that and says you can just walk in there, you just got to be preppy looking.
But actually...
Last minute
they suddenly jump into the bushes and run off into the thing. So it appears as if it's only them that have gone in, but actually in the book it turns out John Ronson and his cameraman also went in separately to them and did just stroll in past the gate.
But I guess so in the programme you only see Alex Jones scuffling off into the bushes with his cameraman, and they managed to film some of what's going on, and sure enough people do turn up in cloaks, and it was all very dramatic. And they do this thing, and it's called the cremation of care, which is where they set fire to rags, essentially, at the bottom of an owl.
Or
and
is it a child?
Or is
As
it a
Alex
child?
Jones slowly but surely convinces himself
Yeah, exactly.
over the course of the programme.
And what they quite clearly are stating, I think, and which I think John Ronson thinks, and I think it's what rational person would think, is they're just burning some rags, and the man who's screaming and shouting over the top is very dramatic, and it is very... there's a lot of drama behind this ritual. It's a very hugely pagan ritual that's going on. Or I think it's pagan anyway. It's very leafy in nature.
I mean, it is very pagan appearing. I don't know,
And it's not. It is what it is. And they're basically, the idea is they're burning care with a capital C, because the idea is all these posh people that have so much influence and so much responsibility for the world are coming together to go on a boys' holiday, essentially. And the symbolism of burning care means that they are burning their responsibilities for 2 weeks, so that after these 2 weeks they can just fuck about, play golf, maybe do some chatting over the breakfast table, and goodness knows what decisions maybe do ultimately get made, but they don't appear to be burning a baby.
Well, they also just piss in the woods in front of each other.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of weird sort of behaviour that goes on, particularly when you consider the people there. John Ronson gets a list of everyone who's there, and to go through it would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
But it really genuinely is the heads of corporations, loads of politicians, loads of very, very influential people. So I have to say, because I watched this series back in the day before I knew anything about conspiracy, this was kind of one of the things that got me interested in a lot of this shit. When I first watched this, it blew my mind when it turned out that this was, quote unquote, true.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. When
As
you
in,
hear,
there is a gathering
you
of
hear
these
this,
people.
yeah, you hear this thing, and these crazy people saying they burn to an owl god, and and they all piss in the woods, and they all sort of chant all these weird things.
It really
and
is a big deal that they piss on these redwood trees.
It seems to
that
be
gets mentioned a lot.
It seems to be a big part of it. And that they were going to infiltrate it. And when I watched this show, and I don't know how you felt when you watched it, sort of, you probably were a lot more aware of a lot of this stuff than I was when you watched it. But as a young person watching this thing, I was like, well, this just can't be true. This is obviously like this insane conspiracy theory that's just made up all of this stuff, and they're gonna go into this clearing in the woods, and there's going to be like maybe some Boy Scouts sitting around or something, or there'll be nothing. And
or
then,
they'll be in suits, and it won't be half as dramatic as cloaks.
But more or less, the crazy thing about it is more or less exactly how he describes it. And obviously Alex Jones sees it through the eyes of a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, exactly.
But exactly as it's described is what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally is a bunch of very powerful people getting together secretly in a massive clearing in the woods.
Yeah.
Being really weird with each other,
really strange, like in robes,
yeah,
screaming, "Burn this!" and "Care be gone!" and wah.
And there's a really and also they do a lot of, so there's a lot of there's a theatrical element to it. I mean, it's all so crazy. It's like you couldn't make this shit up.
Yeah.
There's this they don't really go into this too much in the program, but they put on a lot of theatre and plays and stuff, and so it's all men. No women are allowed.
Yeah.
So there's loads of drag, which is fine, but like there's loads of sort of weird old men. Dressing up in drag. It's not the
mainstream sort of cultured stuff.
Yeah.
But it's all these like really outwardly like uber Christian leaders of the world, or leaders of America,
going and
who are secretly getting drunk with each other
and dressing as ladies.
Yeah, exactly.
And burning effigies to owl gods. It does.
It is mad.
It is crazy that it really it really is genuinely a thing.
Yeah.
So within the conspiracy theorist's mind, this all is absolute proof that these people are Satanists and that they're making all the decisions that run the world within this summer camp.
Yeah, this is proof of the New World Order.
And you can see where they would get that from, because it is so weird that it's secretive and all this sort of stuff. But in reality, I do sort of think it is just a bunch of people. So he meets up with Harry Shearer, who is Derek Smalls from Spinal Tap. It just couldn't get fucking weirder. And basically, he was allowed to go one year.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, how is it that you got to go?" And Derek Smalls said, "Well, I think one year they were trying to Jew the place up a bit, and so they invited a bunch of because sort of artistic people and stuff are sometimes allowed to come. I suppose I think allowed to come is the correct turn of phrase as well, not just invited." And so he went, and he was saying it's basically just a bunch of extremely wealthy rich people that are used to kind of having college fraternities
Yeah.
and doing all of that sort of weird shit that goes on in secret societies and college fraternities, just kind of getting the opportunity to do that for 2 weeks and not worry about their very important jobs.
Yeah.
And I can sort of see that, but it is so weird that it's so secretive.
I mean, he said something that I thought kind of helped it, which was the main conspiracy is to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because I think he's just like, yes, it's weird, but that's just what it is. It is weird. It's fucking weird.
I think
I don't think anything that nefarious is happening. I think they're all
Yeah.
being, a big glorified fraternity of men.
There's a very famous picture from Bohemian Grove, which is one of the ones that conspiracy theories really use to prove unquestionably that it's this place where all the decisions are made. And it's a picture of, I think it's Henry Kissinger, but it might not even be someone that famous. But it's someone giving a speech. But either side of him, on one side of him is Ronald Reagan, and on the other side of him is Richard Nixon.
Yes.
And at that time, I think this was from must have been the early 70s or maybe late 60s. And so more or less it's like Richard Nixon was the next president of the USA, and then Ronald Reagan was not quite, but was more or less the president after that.
Yeah.
And so in that context, and in some respects, because they were from different parties.
Yeah.
It was politicians who were supposedly sort of.
Well, that's part of the conspiracy theorists' general viewpoint, isn't it? That whoever this New World Order is picking candidates for both sides and is playing the entire thing. Yeah. They're not just supporting one side and winning. They're just arranging the entire, facade that we see. That's what conspiracy theorists believe, anyway, isn't it?
But on to Alex Jones. So obviously Alex Jones at this point is extremely young. I had no idea he was as young as he was until we rewatched it very recently.
He was only 26.
He's 26 when he made this. And so Alex Jones, I feel like most people will probably know, he's still around. He had possibly a lot to do, possibly not that much to do with Trump's campaign, and was very behind Trump. I think they sort of had a falling out, but there was a bit of controversy around Alex Jones because so he runs InfoWars, which is constantly just it's a YouTube channel really and a podcast and a general media outlet. He's a multi-millionaire at this point from doing this thing. He started, and at this point he was making this in his bedroom, just down his computer line, and it's grown into this massive thing which is really influential, and is definitely, I would say InfoWars is one of the main, if not the main thing that has led us to shit like QAnon, stuff like the Capitol building protests, totally, all of that stuff.
It's 6 days a week of him ranting about random articles he
for
finds
like
on the internet.
7 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's weird because Ike's the same. It's weird that these conspiracy theories, it's obviously because they're manic or something, they've got so much to fucking say. They just can't shut up. I don't know, how do you find 8 hours worth of conspiracy to talk about every day?
A lot of hate, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of hate and paranoia.
So Alex Jones was sort of caught up in the Trump thing because I think on InfoWars he made it sound, at least at the beginning of the presidency, like he really had Donald Trump's ear.
Yeah.
And to some extent he did, because Trump was doing all the weird shit that Trump did, like he was sharing a lot of stuff on his Twitter from InfoWars, and he was taking a lot of what Alex Jones says as fact, and there was, again, like some conspiracy sort of comes into this where InfoWars apparently got a picture of some people smuggling drugs across the Mexican border, but there was not really any proof to it. It was just like some people in some water that they filmed, and they reported it as absolute unquestionable fact that there's these sort of Mexican people coming into America with their drugs. And Trump, a day later or something, in a speech, brought it up as if it was absolute fact. So there was a lot of talk of really Trump using InfoWars to get his news from, which is fucking mental.
It is crazy. And then he does thank him for, or he doesn't, but one of Trump's campaign thanks InfoWars for helping the Trump revolution. Yeah. That's what it gets named as. So he does get a lot of direct thanks for being pro-Trump anyway.
Well, the other thing is there's this guy Roger Stone who was Trump's campaign manager, although he had to step down because he's such a dodgy fucker. Yeah. And basically he's been the campaign manager of so many presidents that have ended up becoming president. He is unquestionably a psychopath. There's a movie that's made about him. It's so interesting because his psychological state is so scary. He's like a serial killer in a suit. It's so weird.
And there he is.
But he's so powerful, and more or less, I think in the background of a lot of American presidents getting into office it's kind of considered if he's on your side, then you're in, kind of thing.
Oh, God.
And he was certainly with Trump. And there's a documentary made about him on the campaign trail with Trump. I think it's called Bring Me the Head of Roger Stone.
Yeah, or Get Me Roger Stone or something like that, isn't it?
That sounds like it's more likely as that, actually.
Not bring me the head.
That's something
Bring
else.
me his head.
But so he definitely gets InfoWars very involved in the Trump campaign because he sees it as someone who's got millions and millions and millions of eyes on them, listeners and what have you. So it was a really just handy way for him just to get more people to vote for Trump because he doesn't give a fuck. He's got no political allegiances whatsoever. He's just there to win. It doesn't matter how.
Once it's done, he doesn't care.
Yeah. So I forgot actually. We were going to play a little bit of Alex Jones just saying something because it was funny. Should we do that?
Just so you can get a feel for how absolutely
in case you've never heard him speak, here's some of Alex Jones.
Let's tell these people they can't do this anymore, that they can't shit on us. That's really what I'm saying. You can't shit on us anymore. I just want them to stop shitting on us. They're messing with the weather. They're buying armored vehicles and billions of rounds of ammo and have TV shows bad-mouthing the Founding Fathers. I guess just read that God's going to destroy the earth next time by fire. I'm going to cram a gun in their mouth and see how they like it, because I'm free. And it's been in my family history to fight, and I'm not your slave. So get it straight, and we're ready. You can nerve gas us all day. We're ready to rock, and the people are waking up. Because some of us are willing to spill our blood for the sacrifice. You hear me, scum? We're coming for you. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. He is nothing but a Luciferian twit.
Alex Jones.
That's Alex Jones. He's easy to laugh at in a lot of ways, but he's, like I say, so InfoWars is very influential, continuous. And he's a Sandy Hook denier. Sandy Hook was a shooting at a school in which a load of like literally killed. Toddler-age kids got
20
shot.
kids or something, and some teachers.
And a bunch of conspiracy theorists decided that it was all completely make-believe and that the parents were all actors, and they started finding them in the backgrounds of films and things as proof that they're just actors and they're not. Gosh. And of course, these poor people have just had their children have just been murdered. And the conspiracy theories, I don't know what it was, but Sandy Hook was a really big thing for a while, and these conspiracy theories all really went for broke. And Alex Jones was one of the main people that said that. And we watched quite a new interview with him in which he basically just looked like a complete nincompoop. But
I mean, it's awful because these parents were sent death threats. Loads of them were sent death threats, and it's all really awful. And the woman who's interviewing was just like, "Don't you feel bad? Don't you want to say sorry?" And he just dodges it every time. I mean, it is edited kind of to make him look like a buffoon.
But also it's weird because there's loads of stuff that it's a bit like The Sun, but probably more extreme. But there's loads of things that they showed on that interview with him. They showed him making apologies, saying actually this wasn't true, because by law he had to. He was taken to court.
And he's reading like a written apology.
Yeah, but in complete disgust and distaste. Yeah. Not really making an apology, just like we at InfoWars are sorry, like just really pissed off. And she asked him, like, "Are you not sorry? Can you not see these people?" They had their children murdered, and then as a result of what you said, some woman tried to shoot one of them. I think there was someone, and all this. And he, again, I'll put the interview on YouTube. It's worth seeing. He's complete, like, I don't know, his demeanour about it was like he didn't accept. I don't know.
I remember what he said, because he said something like, "It's going through court at the minute, so obviously we had to say what we said then." So basically he's saying like, we had to give the apology. Yeah. But I was working off of different information, so I can't be blamed if the information I was given is wrong. And then she goes on to so basically he gets away with not having to say sorry, actually, and that I only had to say sorry that I read out the wrong information, but not that I don't believe that it actually happened. And then it goes on to be like, well, maybe some children were killed, but then, we watched them doing circles around and it was obviously a drill, and you're like, Jesus Christ, you're not sorry at all, you're obviously a mental, horrible, hateful person.
But he did say during that as well that one of the things that they do is they report on stories because he was being questioned about why he reported on stories without fact checking them, like a journalist would. And he more or less said, "Well, I'm not a journalist, so I don't need to."
Yeah, I just read stuff out and give my opinion.
And like that I think is like sums up how dangerous this sort of alternative media can be, because if you think about the state that America is in the context of the amount of conspiracy theorists and things like this shit that's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
That's where it's coming from.
Yeah, well,
and it's exactly the same as the Sun saying, Jeremy Corbyn's an anti-Semitic, and then suddenly everyone's mum believes that Jeremy Corbyn's an anti-Semitic.
People take what he says as rote, like they really believe him, and he's outwardly saying like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but that doesn't matter because millions of people listen to him every week and decide that he's telling the truth.
It's the same thing. It's like Trump as well, isn't it? It's that fake news thing. If you say that other news is fake without backing that up, and then you say here's a load of other news, but we haven't fact checked it because we're not really journalists, but this is news, and you say, because I mean Alex Jones he's an orator, and he's also a wanker, but he's definitely someone, once he's on a roll, you know, I mean, I can't say he's got much style, I mean, but he can really talk about these subjects, you know? And
I feel like, I mean, going back to the episode, John Ronson's talking to his cameraman afterwards, Mike Hansen, and says, you know, going back to the cremation of Ken, and this kind of ties in with this, like, you don't have to have your facts right to just spiel off whatever. They said to him, but they literally are burning rags. They're not. Wasn't it just a metaphor? Is what he says to him. Yeah. And the cameraman says, "Well, I didn't take it that way."
Yeah,
and that's essentially
his answer
it.
To everything.
He just goes, "Well, that's not how I saw it."
Yeah.
And it's not just that that's not how they saw it. They then proclaimed that they saw a baby being burnt. Yeah. Well, that's how the story gets distorted. And then, like you say, it's told by a man who doesn't need to give facts. And the fact is, he saw what he wanted to see. He's interpreted it the way that fits his story. And he goes and tells it as fact. And he became, like, this video became like a multinational sensation.
Remember as well, it was early days of the internet. Oh, and InfoWars was very early in the context of the internet. So it was a much bigger in a way, / much smaller, than now. But as a result of that, those like sending videos through the post was like a big thing still in 2001. So that video being a bestseller and being presented as absolute fact, and also in fairness, like we said earlier, being really fucking weird, and like understandably you could see where people got conspiracy theories from. It definitely, you can see how that could have sown the seed for the next 20 years. You know, bring us up to now, and you know, and longer.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
I think that Mike Hansen guy is a really interesting character because he's got none of the pizzazz of. I mean, he's like the opposite. You couldn't find a more opposite person to Alex Jones than this guy. There's that bit. I know. There's that bit where he's trying to act.
There's this beautiful bit. Just to give context quickly, when this lawyer has told them you need to dress preppy and just walk in the front door, Alex Jones is super serious. They go shopping for these clothes and he's bought various hats and he really tries to pick out the most preppy outfit. And then he forces this Mike Hansen, his cameraman, to rehearse a conversation. So when we're walking down the drive, we need to be really natural. So you and I will be talking. Let's practice now. And so they're walking up and down outside the motel. And Alex Jones goes on this really rehearsed rant about, oh yes, because nanotechnology, you know, they're just making robots at such molecular level. Getting down to the atomics, when do you think that science is just going to go too far? And Mike Hansen just goes, yep. And then they say, don't you think you need to have a bit more of, like, I think John Ronson goes, don't you think you need to have a bit more ready to say, especially as you're the doctor in this scene? And they go, okay. And Alex John,
but he's like an awkward child. It's like trying to get your sort of 5-year-old nephew to like G'd up for a dramatic drama performance.
Then they do it again, and Alex Jones recites exactly. So he's obviously practiced these long words that he thinks make him sound really like a preppy.
He just says all the scientific words he's heard without any like need for them to make any sense at all.
And then Mike Hansen says absolutely nothing. Yeah. And then John Rosson goes, "Do you really think that that was?" Do you think you sounded preppy enough? Do you think you've got it rehearsed? My Hansen's like, oh, it just needs to be natural on the day.
But that
man, like, we didn't say anything.
Also, he's someone who, when natural, it doesn't feel natural.
Also, what's naturally going to happen is neither of you are going to get to do this. You're going to dive off into the bushes and run up the hill anyway.
I mean, it's we said this last time. The episode is very interesting because you watch these conspiracy theorists slowly but surely like unravel with more and more conspiracy as well.
Yeah.
So it starts with obviously this quite a genuinely weird thing that could definitely point towards, you can understand why people would think that it might be a conspiracy of some sort. But slowly but surely they meet this lawyer guy who's been in before, and he tells them that they should just walk up the path. But then Alex Jones starts getting a conspiracy theory about the lawyer, and then also John Ronson says, and I think this might be in the book and not in the TV show, that Alex Jones starts getting a conspiracy theory about him and
for bringing the lawyer.
And it slowly but surely unravels. And then this Mike Hansen guy, it's really interesting because he's just this knob who's sort of along for the ride. And it's just what you said earlier, really. When they get back from Bohemian Grove, he's just like, oh, that's just proved everything that I believe. But he's not really capable, I don't think. He's not very clever. He's not capable of saying what it is that he believes. He's just saying, this proves to me this is a new world order. I don't think he really understands even what he means by that. But by the next day, he's adamant. He's 100% sure. And he's obviously very Christian. Like a lot of his Christian beliefs come to it. I saw an owl god. And I saw a person.
Yeah, I saw
this
a baby.
This is what I took from it. I saw a baby being sacrificed to an owl god. And America is a Christian country, and nobody should be worshipping an owl god. And it's just like this guy has just unravelled over the course of 24 hours. But he's a cameraman for InfoWars. I don't think he still is actually. I think they fell out. I don't know any details about that. But if you're doing this. And even at this point, this was their full-time job. So every day they're doing this shit, and they're going and doing all of these weird things. Just imagine how many conspiracies upon conspiracies upon conspiracies he's getting just being around Alex Jones. And then just think about the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that listen to this guy for 6 or 7 hours every day.
Gosh.
And watch all of his weird YouTube videos.
And thus Trump.
Bohemian Grove is just generally a really interesting subject, and like I say, it's definitely worth just watching some videos of it because it will blow your mind. I did read another book which was about this, which was quite interesting, which I'll just mention very quickly. It's called American Madness. It's written by a guy called T. Krulos, and it's the story of somebody who considers himself a real-life superhero, and there is a community of other people who call themselves the real-life superheroes, or the RLSHs.
Oh.
His name is the Phantom Patriot. And this guy spends a little bit of time with him. And he is an ex-Marine, I think. He had quite a sad life. He didn't have his whole family died quite close to each other. He was left a lot of money. He didn't really have a lot of skills. He sort of came back from the army. And he decided he was going to become a real-life superhero and basically clean up the streets. So he made up this character of the Phantom Patriot. But one of the things that he did, the main thing that he did, was that he decided he was going to go and infiltrate Bohemian Grove. But by infiltrate, I don't mean do what Alex Jones did. I mean he was going to go in there and basically shoot the place up.
In his outfit?
Yeah, in his outfit. Yeah, he was going to go there as a superhero and he was going to take care of business in Bohemian Grove. And it's a really sad story because he went on the wrong day and there was no one there. So,
just a big empty stone owl.
Yeah, he did find the stone owl, and I don't think he did. He tried to push the stone owl over.
It's fucking
but it's
massive.
It's massive, so he couldn't push it. But obviously, he thought it was a superhero, so he was having a try. The only thing that he did manage to do is that he managed to break into one of the lodges that they all stay in, and the only thing that he could find was that they'd the sandwiches had been prepared for like the next day or whenever they were all coming to Bohemian Grove. So he just threw the sandwiches around. But he got a bit hungry halfway through, so he did eat some.
He ate some of the sandwiches of the shadowy elite.
So,
he really stuck it to them.
But so this is this hilarious story about this.
Where's the cheese on your sandwiches gone, Mr. Nixon? I think it would have been there.
But this hilarious story about this silly man that's gone and done this thing. But then this is where it gets weird. Or not weird, but this is where it suddenly becomes real. Is that obviously the police are called at some point. There is some security guards and stuff there. And so he comes out of the gate. So Bohemia Grove is just down this road. It says not a through road, and there's no obviously it's not obvious. It's just like a little country lane. He comes out of the end of there, and by this time, loads of there's some police officers. Not loads. There's just some police officers there. He, of course, being the fucking Phantom Patriot with like 10 guns on him, pulls out all of his guns and points them at the police. So then the police call in loads of reinforcements because there's this guy. So the Phantom Patriot, I don't know how to describe him really. He wears like a skull mask, and I think he's got an American flag bandana, and he's got kind of like Slipknot's outfit on, but it says Patriot on the thing, and he drew a skull, like this sort of skull with the stars and stripes in it that he wears on a belt buckle.
Well done.
So he looked like a pretty gnarly dude with loads of guns. So of course, the
full on
police...
sandwiches.
well, yeah, he had a lot of
he's
energy.
ready to go.
Yeah. And thankfully, I don't think anybody got hurt. I think he did get shot in the leg, I think, or something like that.
He could have been full on murdered.
Yeah, but well, of course. And so, but there's a shootout outside Bohemian Grove. It's a really interesting story. Anyway, he ends up in prison. He then ends up...
Well, is he then martyred for this somehow?
Well, he thinks he is, but he's not. You see, this is a really sad story about this guy, is that he's just this really sad man who's desperately trying to get attention and he thinks he's got a political message. He draws comic books as well, but they're all about him as this sort of superhero. So after all of this, he drew a comic book where he went into Bohemia Grove and
pushed over the stone owl
and beat up George Bush and did all this stuff. But actually in reality, obviously,
he just ate a cheese and onion sandwich.
But he did end up in prison for quite a while. Yeah, he wasn't really martyred, but he was desperately trying to get his message out there to try and get himself martyred. He then, when he got out, and this is when the guy meets up with him and spends a bit of time with him, he starts making YouTube movies. And he's got a little bit of money, of course, so he hires these people to kind of do the filming and do the editing and all of this stuff. And it's all about the Phantom Patriot, and he gets some of his other real-life superhero friends to come. And this has all totally happened. And just saying it out loud makes me sound like I'm making this up.
Is it on YouTube? Can we put
yes,
it on there?
so all of his movies are on YouTube. They're completely unwatchable, but I will put them on the YouTube playlist. And I would really recommend this book because, like I say, it's called American Madness. This guy T. Krulos he's similar-ish. He's got none of the wit of John Ronson, but he does write some pretty decent books about some quite interesting subjects. But this is by far his best.
Fantastic. Well, from one strange happening in the woods to the next episode, which is about a strange happening somewhere else.
So the fifth episode is called The Bilderberg Group, and John Ronson teams up with this guy called Big Jim Tucker.
Big Jim Tucker.
Who is the editor of a newspaper called The Spotlight. Big Jim Tucker is apparently quite famous within the conspiracy theory world because he discovered this thing called the Bilderberg Group. And that's said as an absolute fact. And I think he discovered the Bilderberg Group 20 years ago or something.
Yeah, doesn't John Ronson say that all the conspiracy theories lead back to this one man?
Yeah. Basically. And he is, every year, the Bilderberg Group is a very similar thing to Bohemian Grove, really. It's a bunch of very powerful people that get together. This time, instead of being around a giant stone owl...
Not so satanic this time.
So satanic. They go to a mid-priced hotel resort with golfing facilities.
Doesn't have to be luxury, but must be comfortable. That was the only thing I remember about this. And near to an airport.
That's right.
With golf facilities.
And a bit like out of the way.
A bit out of the way.
And this guy, Big Jim Tucker, has sort of made it his life's work, really, to follow the Bilderberg Group around. That's all done, again, similar sort of thing. It's all done in a lot of secrecy. But the difference is here is the hotel changes every year. So he spends most of his year trying to work out, in various ways, where this Bilderberg meeting is going to be happening. And then he goes. And on this occasion, he decides that he's going to infiltrate this thing, despite the fact that he's quite an elderly man who gets out of breath very quickly because he's continuously smoking.
Smokes 60 cigarettes a day.
Yeah, he's a bit overweight. He's definitely not what you would expect. He's no Phantom Patriot.
I can't imagine he's alive now. I'll put it that way.
But he does tell John Ronson that he's initially, when they go and look at this hotel that they find in Portugal, so he's discovered that this meeting is happening in Portugal, that he's looking for, and I will quote, the short wall and the big drain pipe. So this guy,
he's going to shimmy.
This guy thinks he's going to shimmy over a wall and go up a drain pipe.
God, he must be about 60 something.
I mean, he could just have been a really hard liver. I'm not sure.
Actually, yeah, tell a lie.
But
he might be younger than that.
It's difficult to say. But the story of this episode is really that John Ronson and this Big Jim Tucker, they go to Portugal, they go and try and find the Bilderberg Group, they go to the hotel where it is. But most of the TV show is about the fact that they go there 2 days, I think, before the meeting is supposed to happen. And it's just a normal hotel resort. Yeah. There's no big deal. They go and he just goes to sort of scope out the place. I think they have lunch. But on the way home, they think they're getting followed by a car, like a black car.
Yeah.
But when they stop, the car drives on, and they think, maybe Big Jim Tucker, I think, thinks that they're definitely being followed, but John Ronson sort of says, "Oh, maybe we actually weren't really
Like,
being
oh
followed."
look, they're not following us anymore, Jim.
But so the next day they go back again, and by this time the place is shutting down a little bit, and
It's completely empty apart from them, isn't
yeah.
it?
But they do again.
they're allowed
They
in.
are allowed in, and they can eat lunch.
And they were expecting to get turned away, so they're a bit spooked.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh shit, there's no one here. Let's just eat lunch and go."
But on the way home, they are definitely being followed.
Like 100%
no question
followed.
that they're being followed.
They keep pulling over, and the car pulls over behind them. They do that a number of times, and they
Yeah.
say they get followed for like hours.
Well, again, in the book, it goes into a bit more detail about this. When they get back to the hotel, the people that have followed them hang around, and they're like looking at them through binoculars and all this
Yes,
sort
and
of
aren't they
stuff.
shouting, like, as in John Ronson and Big Jim Tucker, don't they shout at them a bit?
I think
or...
Big Jim Tucker does.
Yeah, I think he
don't
does.
John
He
Ronson
takes
does.
photos of them.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. And John Ronson calls the British Embassy.
He does. He's really. You can tell, like,
Yeah.
genuinely, he's really freaked out about it. And there's a few interesting, like, little tidbits about this.
Yeah.
One of the really interesting things is that when he rings the British Embassy and he explains his situation, and he says that he describes himself as a humorist who's doing
Yeah.
a piece on the Bilderberg group.
Yeah.
The British Embassy basically say to him, "They're way out of our league.
Yeah.
We can't do anything about this." And he's quite surprised by that, because it's
Yeah.
like, well, who the fuck are this? Because again, he's gone into this thinking, well,
I'm
is
going to
this
watch
thing-
an old man shimmy up a pipe and watch nothing.
Is the Bilderberg group really
Yeah.
actually real? But it is real.
Yeah.
And on the day that it's supposed to start, they go and they camp up outside, and they're waiting for people to turn up. And he says they're there for most of the day, and he starts to think, oh, maybe this is all a load of nonsense,
Yeah.
and maybe it's not going to happen. And then one by one, more and more
5
people start
PM.
turning up. So one of the there's a journalist from one of the local newspapers who's with them, and I think the local newspaper is quite interesting, because I think they're all sort of conspiracists. They're certainly extremely, extremely religious.
Yeah, I was about to
And,
say,
there's
definitely religious.
the editor of the local newspaper starts saying that he thinks that the Bilderberg group is proof of end times coming and all
That's
this weird
it.
shit.
No, he says really casually, like, we in the Christian community believe the end times are coming.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh,
And that before
cool.
the end times come, there'll be a small group in power or something.
But he also says children will start disrespecting their parents.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's a sign. Just really casually. And so this completely freaks him out.
Yeah. But one of these guys says that he swears that in one of the cars, or I think in one of the coaches,
You're the first coach to pull up.
yeah, he sees Peter Mandelson.
Yeah.
And John Ronson thinks a little bit like, oh, really? Like, is this... Because the guy does come across as a bit of a lunatic.
Yeah.
But later on, John Ronson gets a list of all the people that are there, and Peter Mandelson was one of
Yeah.
them. And more or less, again, it's similar to Bohemian Grove. It's a bunch of what they describe as financiers and industrialists.
Yeah, loads of CEOs of huge
Yeah.
companies like Nokia, and the World Bank is
But
there.
also lots of politicians as
Yes.
well. And one of my favourite bits is that so John Ronson eventually gets to find out, like, genuinely interview some people, some Bilderbergers.
Some people who have attended, yeah.
And one of the people that he interviews is the head of W.H. Smith.
Yes.
Who is actually in charge of arranging the Bilderberg meetings.
Yeah, he's
at
like
this
the general
time.
secretary at that time.
I don't think he is always. But and he says to him, "Why do you keep everything so secret? You must be able to understand that people are going to come up with conspiracy
Yeah.
theories." And he says, "Well, for the most part, it's to keep the politicians in line, because if it wasn't, you know what politicians are like," he says. If it wasn't secret, they would be getting all the news media there all the time. And he says, "Well," and he says, because all politicians are insane." And he just says that, it just like rolls off his tongue, and then they just move on. I really love it.
He's a ledge.
Well, he's not really.
Well, no, actually,
obviously-
no, he's
obviously a
completely
very
awful, completely
powerful,
awful.
posh prick. But
I mean, he does say things like, you make all of the, like, world decisions there. Why do you think people think that? And he goes, if you could see how difficult it is to create a meeting like this,
Yeah.
you would never credit us.
the practicalities of
The public would never credit us with such a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, but then he does say, obviously we do, discussions are had at the breakfast table, and we'll get on to the general thoughts about it.
So I mean, I suppose the interesting thing about this episode is that there's two sides to it. There's the side where John Ronson himself finds himself going down the conspiracy rabbit hole a bit, because he finds out that this Bilderberg group is actually real.
Yeah.
He finds out that there's definitely very powerful people that have secretly come and met in a hotel that nobody
Then
knows
he's being
about.
followed.
He's being followed. So there's that side of it. And obviously this guy, Big Jim Tucker, is very much on board with the conspiracy side of things, and is also, by the way, a complete arsehole.
Oh, and an anti-Semite.
And the spotlight. It's only later that John Ronson realised the spotlight is like a proper racist.
It's the
right-wing.
leading anti-Semitic.
Well, so that's something.
Or
so,
right-wing leaning.
So we spoke about the ADL a little bit last episode. He goes back to the ADL, who are the Anti-Defamation League, which are a Jewish group who are more or less set up to spot anti-Semitic people.
Yeah.
Now the spotlight is unquestionably an anti-Semitic.
It's definitely right wing.
And there's a lot of Holocaust denial in it. There's a lot of. It's a really dodgy paper, unquestionably, no doubt. And they do say that. But it is quite interesting. The bit that I found quite interesting about the ADL was when he asked throughout the previous episodes. Yeah. The ADL are very much used by conspiracy theorists to say if you get too close to the truth, the ADL immediately say that you're an anti-Semite, and that's the worst thing that you can say, and therefore you get completely wiped out of history, and no one will listen to you anymore. And David Icke says this, and we had a conversation about this on the last episode.
The ex-police officer that goes up to Ruby Ridge, who's like leading police against the New World Order or something.
But we had a discussion about this on the last episode, so I won't go into it too much. But I feel like we probably do need to say this. One of the things with David Icke is he was being called an anti-Semite, but really, I think the episode and more or less everything that I know about David Icke kind of shows that actually he's not really an anti-Semite. He's just a lunatic.
Yeah,
he
does believe
the
lizards
ADL believe that when he says 9-foot lizards, he means Jewish people, but actually in reality, I'm pretty sure he just means lizards. And if he didn't, his anti-Semitism would be completely pointless because it's so cloaked in words that people don't realise are anti-Semitic and don't appear to be anti-Semitic in any way.
Yeah.
So anyway, so with that in mind, so that this is one of the things that the conspiracy theorists say a lot. And one of the things I found interesting about this episode is that when John Ronson asked the ADL what they think of the Bilderberg group, the same person who throughout the entire series has been saying, no, this person's anti-Semitic, no, they use codes, they use this, when they say these words, they mean this. Immediately start saying, oh, the Bilderberg group are an amazing bunch who are doing excellent work. Yeah. But the interesting thing that I found is that she said, well, a lot of people have made up conspiracy theories about these people, but all they really are financiers and industrialists who meet together and try and make the world go round, more or less. The interesting thing that I found about that is in the previous episode, everybody that's used the term financiers or industrialists they've said that's code for Jewish people. And I did find that quite interesting. They never really discussed that on the program. But it was a weird little thing whereby the same words that throughout this entire series they've been saying these are code words. And of course she's not being anti-Semitic, I'm not suggesting that. No. But it's just interesting that the same words are being used. It's like she said the exact same words as Jim Tucker said about the Bilderberg group, like literally used the same phrases, but they're the phrases that she was saying he was being an anti-Semite used. I just thought that was really interesting.
That is interesting.
So then John Ronson, the second part of the episode, having kind of got sucked into all of this conspiracy, then gets the minutes from the meeting and meets with a couple, including Dennis Healy, who is a very elderly, awful, very posh, conservative man, who, in fairness, is quite fun in this episode.
Fun. I mean,
I definitely hate him.
So awful. He does kind of agree that they might be part of a conspiracy.
Well,
he's just like, it wouldn't, like, he gets asked if, do you think it's reasonable that people think that you're all getting together and making decisions about the world and that's part of a conspiracy? And he's kind of like, well, in a way I guess we do that.
Yeah. And he says, well, that's just the way the world goes round. And in some respect, the interesting thing I found about it is that there's the two sides to this thing. On the one hand, there's the conspiracy theory that you can kind of see why someone would have a conspiracy theory, and to some extent you yourself get a little bit caught up in that idea. And it's the same with Bohemian Grove. But on the other hand, when you actually see the reality of the thing that happened, so he gets the minutes from this meeting, that year's meeting,
and he doesn't say the source, just someone on a bike delivers them to him one day.
But he gives them to Big Jim Tucker to read through, and he says the thing is with the minutes is they're really just like a boring bunch of meetings where yes, people are talking about the way the world's run and they are kind of making connections with each other, but it's really dull. What they're talking about isn't in any way
just like
it's not dramatic at all. But of course, being Big Jim Tucker reads through this and says, well, I feel vindicated. This just proves everything that I've ever said. Yeah. And John Ronson's more or less saying, well, actually, no, it doesn't. It proves exactly that what you've been saying is wrong. Yeah. But it's interesting that you can take it that way. And it's just, I just find it interesting that the conspiracy, when you actually really break it down into what it actually really is is genuinely, this is something Dennis Healy is right about, it is just how the world works.
Yeah.
It's not how any of us want the world to work.
Yeah.
You know, but it's how capitalism works. It's how corporate entities deal with each other. And we all say corporations are paying MPs so that they get what they want. And we all know that they're doing that. There's no conspiracy about that. That's no one's pretending that isn't happening or isn't going on. But these are just the places that's happening. And in a way, I think that Bohemian Grove is just one of the places, as weird as it is, and as much as there's an owl god, it is still just like, it is just kind of capitalism, isn't it?
Well, something that I think, I've got it written down as a quote, and I think it must be John Watson that says it at the end, or maybe he's quoting someone else. It says, maybe nothing but the flow of money controls the world, and that no one controls anything.
Yes, that's exactly. So,
and I kind of think maybe that links to what you just said, that actually we like to believe that it's this group of people that are very deliberately running things, but actually, like you say, it's the flow of capitalism. And yes, all these horrible decisions get made, and it does look very sinister, but that's kind of the world that we're in now. Capitalism works that way, only works that way.
Well, I think there's that, but there's also another side to that, which is that in a funny sort of way, we see these people coming up with conspiracy theories as kind of the extreme ones. Actually, they're just desperate for someone to be in charge in a way. Yeah. It's like, which is what you just said, really.
It would make an answer for all.
Yeah, there isn't actually an answer. It's just chaos. We just live in this complete load of chaos. Certain people are in power, but they're not really controlling as much as you think that they are. And in reality, conspiracy theories are almost, in a funny sort of way, they're desperately trying to say, well,
there must be a reason.
There must be, like, what do they say? The people that rule the world could sit around one big table or whatever it is. It's like, well, actually, no, that's not true. No. In reality, no one's running the world. Yeah. We're just on a train that's, like, at any time could just fall off the rails.
Exactly.
And it's quite interesting because if you think about the way that conspiracies are used, particularly, bringing things up to date, yes, we all look at people that have conspiracy theories about COVID and think, oh, you're being stupid. But actually, those are the people that are most scared of COVID. Because if COVID was real, of course it is real, but in their head, if COVID is real, that means that no one's in control. No one's giving people that, China isn't really giving people an illness. It's just an illness. Because we live on a planet that, if it's like, environmental disasters. Yeah. It's like, people that don't believe in climate change. In reality, climate change is real, and that's scary as fuck. And it's much easier. It's much easier to, like, believe that it's not real, because otherwise, we might turn into a fireball at any minute.
Exactly. No, I think
that's
it's
a
completely
conspiracy
right.
theory that I just came up with. The fireball at any minute.
The fireball at any minute. I mean, to sum up my kind of thoughts on the series, I think it's really interesting that that's probably the end thoughts. And definitely how I feel at the end of these two episodes. But I must say, you do get drawn into it on the first few, especially Ruby Ridge. Yeah. Because whilst there isn't any big organisation that's running the world, within it there are awful organisations that are definitely covering up nasty things that they're doing and doing awful things, like Ruby Ridge, like the CIA and the FBI,
like the police. Yeah, in the history, but recently, all of those things. Like, there's so much evidence of that.
I wish that there would be a better way of using conspiracy theorists' time, because they jump to the big crazy things, and actually there are awful things. There are police cover-ups. There are horrible people in charge and doing things that are getting avoided. And maybe because some of these crazy people do point to the bigger things. People like Trump do point to, like, the crazy, look what could be happening in the world, horribleness. Because that's easier than... And it detracts attention from, look at what some of the people who are very much influential in the world, directly affecting you and I's livelihoods, deflect from them, deflect from all of this awfulness, because it's far more interesting and more scary to go, oh look, COVID's this, oh look, nanobots in your vaccines,
oh there's a giant owl god,
an owl god, and all these scary people that rule the world from one room. But actually there's bigger, scarier things that are one step closer to us that those people would rather you didn't think about. Which it's hard not to sound like a conspiracy theorist yourself, because when you say those people, and there are still scary people in the world, but there are very, like you say, there's legit cover-ups that probably are happening that have almost been proven, or at least are too questionable to ignore, like Ruby Ridge, like Waco, like bits of the Oklahoma bombing.
But I do think that those things fit into that same thing where it's actually just chaos. The reason that Ruby Ridge happened isn't really a conspiracy. It's just that a load of human beings totally fucked up and didn't really give a shit about that and thought they could get away with anything. And it's like all human error. It's not really that someone's sitting there saying we should do this. But
it's not a conspiracy, but it is covering up of awfulness.
Going back to what you were saying, I think that one of the things that jumps into my head a lot, I watched a movie about flat earthers. I think maybe we watched.
Yes.
So we watched a movie about flat earthers, and one of the things about that movie was that it showed all the flat earthers, and they were doing all of their nonsense, and they were talking about all of their nonsense and everything. And what the film did, I'm sure a few people have seen this. I think it was on Netflix. Is that it had a lot of scientists who were also, just in despair because they were being told the theories of these flat earthers, and they were just in complete despair, and they were sort of taking the piss out of them. And obviously the film was made to pretty much take the piss out of them, as it should be, completely, and exactly how I felt throughout the whole film. And then right at the very end, they interviewed one scientist, and he made this really good point, and I think it's quite interesting in this context as well.
Yeah.
And the point that he made was there's some really talented people that believe in flat Earth that are desperately attempting to do really interesting scientific work to prove their theory. And the only problem for them is that their theory is wrong.
Yeah.
And the problem is that we in the scientific community laugh at these people because they believe that the Earth is flat, and it's so obviously not. But what we should be doing is engaging with them and actually finding their strengths, because he was saying, like, some of the things that they're doing, yes, what they're aiming to do is completely absurd and completely ludicrous, but their minds are really, we should be getting them into the scientific fold and getting them to be doing these things. And in some respects, I look at some conspiracy theories and I think the same thing. A lot of them are very dislikable, and there's a lot of racists involved, and there's a lot of, all of that sort of stuff. But someone like David Icke, who is unquestionably unwell, you can't say that his mind doesn't work in a way that he's definitely, like,
he's a very good talker.
And the same with Alex Jones. They're both people that have managed to get millions and millions and millions of people to believe them and listen to them. If those people
be sensible,
and I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you do with that, because you couldn't like talk Alex Jones around to anything, and or David Icke for that.
Oh no, his delusion disorders too.
But it is quite an interesting thing where you just what we tend to do, and what I do 100%, is just laugh and just find these people ludicrous. But actually, the way their brains work is quite interesting. The things that they come up with is all wrong, but it's interesting. It's interestingly wrong. That's one of the things I love about these conspiracy theories. Is not that I believe in a single one of them. I don't really believe in anything, full stop. But I fucking love them because they're mad as fuck. And these people have come up with these brilliant stories to explain away these, what turn out to be, and just to sort of conclude these two programs. Both of them, the actual reality seems to be much duller than the incredible reality that the conspiracy theorists have come up with. I feel like they should just write like fantasy books or something. And I'd love to read them. So I think that's probably it for the secret rulers of the world. I hope that what didn't go on too long. Obviously, we weren't really sure whether doing one subject over the course of 2 weeks was a bit much or not really, but we thought we'd give it a go, and this just seemed like a very big one. I think we might do more John Ronson in the future, although we'll leave it a while now. But his book, The Men Who Stare at Goats, and he did a similar programme which is called The Crazy Rulers of the World, are both really good. So we might do something similar in the future. But for now, I think we're going to play a song.
Yes, let's do it.
This song is by Top Left Club, who are a new band from Brighton. It's more or less half of them are from Rotten Foxes and the other half are Skinny Milk.
Two amazing bands.
Indeed. And another amazing band that they've made. They've got a new album that's just come out called Shoulders at 90. It's on Beast Records. We actually, at Toxic What's It, we've just got a bunch of them in. So if you want to buy them from us, don't buy them from them. But yeah, you should definitely check out Top Left Club. They're playing What's It Cool Fest, and this is No Control. There's no control. These are the blues.
I love what I see.
Leave the auditorium.
It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
This episode's film for review is Two-Headed Shark Attack from 2012.
Look like co-ed's gone crazy.
You're still college students, Laura. Can't change that.
I told you this semester would offer you educational opportunities beyond your wildest expectations. First group, let's go. Spread out, but stay in this area. Cannibals.
Better safe than dinner, Professor.
All right, who's getting nude first?
Is this more of what you had in mind?
This is exactly what I had in mind.
Run.
So essentially, this film, in short, there's a school trip of teenagers that are on a boat.
Some of the teenagers are quite elderly.
Well, yeah, and it's for some nondescript subject that's never really discussed. They're with their professor and his maybe wife. No, that's never really discussed. And basically, a shark hits the boat, causing a hole in the boat, so they get abandoned on an island. But the island starts flooding, apparently.
Or sinking.
Well,
appears to be
flooding, sinking, who knows? Whilst the boat is sunk by a mutated two-headed shark. And it's about how they're going to be safe from this monster and get out of it safely. I mean, that's basically describing it.
And then they fuck about on the island and the shark sort of occasionally attacks.
The essential what happens in this film is it's just toing and froing from a boat that may or may not be sinking, and they just keep getting attacked by this two-headed shark until pretty much all of them are dead apart from a couple.
And the two-headed shark is extremely CGI.
Oh, it's very good. Well, it ranges from being CGI to really close-up paper mache, which is amazing. But one of the survivors is Brooke Hogan, Hulk Hogan's daughter, in this amazing feat of acting. Carmen Electra is a doctor, professor, she runs the boat, but essentially just wears a bikini and writhes around quite a lot, and turns out is married to the professor who's leading this the trip, but that's never clear until very much when they meet their demise.
I think they could only afford Carmen Electra for like 2 days worth of filming or something, so they just said sunbathe and we'll film you,
sunbathe and
then
ride,
like say these 5 lines and we'll just work out a way.
And then at last minute we'll decide that you're actually with him. It's only when I read their character names in the credits that I realised that they were married. Who knew? I didn't.
I don't think that's very important to the plot.
No, but there's no like emotional connection between any of these characters, and at no point is there any really good storyline. So we're selling it really well.
I mean, it's fucking dreadful.
This is a horrendous film.
It's I suppose I presume this was after Sharknado, which is kind of the famous version of this film, but it's actually pre-Sharknado. So,
is it?
So there's loads of these movies, and I'm sure everybody listening must have watched at least one of them. And we wanted to do this film partly because we thought the very first episode of this podcast, we did that film Snake Out of Compton.
Oh, yeah.
We felt like we'd gone down a little bit of a hole of just finding weird and wonderful 80s films and stuff like that. And we thought that this would be not similar in any way, but just, I think they might be made by the same company. And if they're not, they're made in similar ways. Terrible CGI monster.
Yeah.
And just kind of really cheaply made and thrown out there, but kind of vaguely modern. Although, actually, it turns out this is older than I thought it was until we started watching. But they were all churned out on Sci-Fi, these things, and all of them have the same sort of look. They're all kind of... I mean, the budget couldn't have been, like, microscopic. You know, they've got quite a few actors and stuff, and in comparison to last episode's Neil Breen film, I kept thinking
which
about,
I hope you've all watched, by the way. It's on YouTube. You'll never regret it.
They kind of look vaguely similar, and as much as I imagine they use the same digital camera, which is probably like a mid-range one, but this one is like definitely edited better. You know, the CGI is probably better, even though it's really terrible. The acting is better. The script is actually a script to some extent, although nothing really happens and it's not very good. But it is infinitely more boring than the Neil Breen film that we watched last time. Like, there's just no I would rather watch a million Neil Breen films than two-headed shark.
Well,
attack.
I think there's some similarities in their continuities and discrepancies. Because there's a scene where there's a boy with two girls and they're making their way into the water. So you kind of get the feeling that impending doom is coming. It's a bit like Jurassic Park. Like, ooh, I hear a dinosaur. Meow, now you've been eaten by the dinosaur. I'm walking towards the water. Oh, look, a shark's probably going to kill me. And he goes, oh, who's getting nuked first? And then immediately it just cuts to blood.
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's no like.
I wonder whether that was a cut because so we watch this is on YouTube, like the whole film is on YouTube. I wonder whether that's like a TV edit or something where they cut out.
I think that might have been the only bit where there was some boobs because as long as there is a lot of people in their like bikinis, and you do think it's just going to be relying on some. I mean, it relies on sexual innuendos and sexual jokes. Not even innuendos, just straight up. Do you want to fuck sort of like lines.
I mean the whole film.
So I imagine they cut, like the one we watched is probably the cut version. But they didn't cut it very well, and to be honest, I didn't think, only now do I realise it probably wasn't the film, because the film's so badly made that I just thought it was part of the film. They cut straight to blood.
Everybody is terrible at acting.
Yeah.
All the words that they say are absolutely terrible. The music is utter dog shit.
Well, I think it made it difficult to age, because I definitely, with all the music being so weirdly, horribly nu metal, I definitely thought this was going to be like 2002, 2003.
But it's not
2012?
Yeah, but it's not all nu metal, is it? I mean, you're totally right, but it's like, there's one of it, it's almost like really terrible versions of all the terrible genres that were big 10 years before 2012. Because there's like a sort of rock, country and western song that we thought might have been sung by Brooke Hogan but wasn't. But could have. I mean, none of these things were in the credits. None of them are, they sound like bands, but they're all just like one person. So it's obviously just...
I looked up one of the bands, and the picture that came up was of a very... It looked like Savage Garden with a shitloads of facial surgery. Like, is really a thing, and they're still playing. I can't remember what it was. I think it's called Closer Than Venus. Look them up. Because I looked at one picture and was like, oh my holy fuck. Like, I can totally understand why they made the music for this film.
But, you know, it's like... I think it's probably supposed to be mildly comedic. But the jokes aren't jokes like that. But you really wouldn't even know that they're.
No one's acting or capable of acting.
I'm pretty sure that. So the CGI shark, which does have two heads. I'll give it that much.
I mean, it lives up to what it says.
It does seem to change size a lot.
Yeah, so and change speed of swimming.
Yeah. Well, also the distance. So really, any drama. There's no drama in this film, but any drama is supposed to come from the fact that at all times some of the people are on a boat which is broken down and can't move anywhere.
Yeah.
And some of the people are on an island which
maybe sinking.
And I'm fairly sure I don't know if I'm right about this because I pray that I can't be. But I'm pretty sure that what happens at some point in the film is the shark headbutts the island, and then the island...
and then it starts sinking.
And I'm pretty sure at some point the shark swims underneath the island.
Well, they call it an atoll rather than an island quite a lot, and that's a big joke for some reason.
Is it?
Well, they keep saying, oh, it's not an island. I mean, the atoll, I don't fucking know, but they try and make a joke
maybe an
out of
atoll scientifically
is you can swim under
is
it,
an
maybe?
island that just floats on the
Fuck
water.
knows.
I feel like because that's kind of how it's presented.
They
they
do focus on that quite a lot for no reason.
Maybe that's me being dumb.
No, I don't think so.
But the weird thing, so that's all the drama, and there's like little boats that they seem to have different numbers of small boats.
At any one time,
and they find
sometimes
some and they fix some, and
look, a dinghy. I'm eating.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really scary to go in the boats, but sometimes they just appear. The movement from boat to island, they've just done it, and there's no drama involved in that.
Oh yeah,
and sometimes it's a massive drama that they might get in by the shark.
There's one bit where the whole point is that they're stuck on the island and they can't get to the boat out at sea because this shark just keeps getting them, and the professors are all on the boat at sea, and they're like, "Gosh, they can't keep coming to us. They keep getting eaten." The next scene, the professors have gotten on a boat and they're on the island.
Yeah,
no drama whatsoever.
No. But also the distance between all of those things seems to change. So sometimes people can quite easily swim between the island and the boat.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it looks like it's about 2 miles out to sea. And then, like, there's one point where between the island and the big boat, they have like a race.
Yeah.
And the idea of that is that they don't realise that there's a shark, and everyone on the island is shouting, "Oh, there's a shark," but they're just enjoying themselves and having a race. But it's like, at other times, it's only about 20 metres. So I don't know where the fuck they're having the race in between boat and island. It's very strange. It's all... I mean, I think that the trick photography that they use is more or less that they probably film the whole thing on a beach.
Yeah,
and so
staring
when they
out
want
at the sea.
yeah, when they want to look like they're in the middle of the sea, they just point the camera that way, and otherwise they don't. There's 3 things I enjoyed about this. My favourite thing is that at one point they're deciding who's going to drive the boat because they think that it's going to get eaten by a shark, and there's a couple of Spanish guys in it, or Mexican guys, and there's a weird thing with they're always speaking in Spanish, but they seem to understand English.
Yeah, and Carmen Electra definitely understands them,
but Carmen Electra talks back to them in English.
Yeah,
so there's this weird thing, and I don't know if that's supposed to be a joke, is that the Spanish guys always speak to people who are supposedly speak English in Spanish, but they understand them and they respond in English, and then they have a conversation that way, which doesn't seem to make any sense.
No.
Anyway, my favourite bit is that at one point one of them says to the other one something in Spanish, and the subtitle at the bottom just comes up, "Send the stupid moron," which I quite enjoyed that. The other thing that I quite enjoy is that everybody runs away from things. So it's weird, so weird that they're on an island or whatever, an atoll. And there's points where they're running away from a 2-headed shark, which is presumably in the water.
Yeah.
But they're just on land and they're running away in fear. Anyway, when they run away in fear, they have to run really slowly because they're all wearing flip-flops. And so they're all really awkwardly running. I quite like that. And the only other thing that I like is that in the credits, the shark model's name is Ken Brilliant.
Oh, Ken Brilliant. That was his, life's work. There it goes.
And the shark, who can apparently almost destroy an island and make it have an earthquake, gets stuck in a small rickety door at one point.
Oh yeah, of course he does.
And can't get out. That's a bit weird.
Yeah, it gets stuck. What an idiot.
This film is absolutely terrible.
So, I don't usually care for user reviews, but the user review on IMDb that is at the top pretty much sums it up. There are many gory deaths, but the majority of effects are done on a computer, and I felt like I was watching somebody playing The Sims at various times, which I definitely think is true. The amount of continuity errors and dumb decisions made on the part of the cast is unbelievable. I think the whole randomly sinking atoll part of the story was the most jaw-dropping. In any case, this is a real stinker.
Yeah.
Still gave it 3 out of 10.
Oh, well, I'm not going to be that.
Yeah. There's some films where you think, especially going back to Snake Out of Compton, where you're like, God, this is so terrible, but there was some enjoyment to be had.
I was going to say, there was charm to it.
Whereas this is truly charmless. It's really crap. I really wanted to watch a shit film, but this was just beyond shit.
Fault. Brooke Hogan is absolutely terrible. Did she ever make it? I know she had a music career.
You say absolutely terrible. She is
TV.
probably the best actress in this by default.
Maybe. But,
actor.
All right, fine. But she was also the only one I'd ever heard of, apart from Carmen Electra. But
Carmen Electra really poo-pooed this. She was.
But I don't think she was ever really an actress, was she?
Yeah, true. Well, she's in Showgirls.
But yeah, I thought Brooke Hogan was absolutely dreadful. I don't really know. I only know her as being Hulk Hogan's daughter.
I watched Hogan Knows Best, so I've seen quite a lot of her when she was 16.
Oh, is that the reality
what?
TV
You never
show?
watched Hogan Knows Best?
No.
I mean, no one should now, being that he's come out to be the most horrible racist, horrible sex offending fuck knows what he is.
Well, also he had that long. There was that documentary where he had a long discussion about his penis being a different size to Hulk Hogan's penis in court.
Hulk Hogan had a discussion about his penis being different.
You told me about this. So there was a sex tape, and he sued the people that released the sex tape. One of the reasons that he sued the place that released the sex tape was that it ruined his character. Because Hulk Hogan's penis is much bigger, and so his fans all saw that his penis was smaller than Hulk Hogan's penis.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know whether Brooke Hogan was created by Hulk Hogan's penis or Terry Bollea's penis.
Oh, well, I don't know.
By the amount of charisma she's got, I imagine Terry Bollea.
She's definitely got the facial surgery of her mother.
Oh, really? I've seen a picture of her mother.
You've never watched Hogan Knows Best?
No.
Oh,
I don't think I've ever watched
you were born at a
reality
different
TV
time
show.
to me. Yeah, no, it was a horrible. It was one of the early reality TV shows that were shown on MTV after the Osbournes. So yeah. It was bad.
I didn't watch the Osbournes either.
All bad. Anyway, let's get off this terrible film.
Well, just to say, Two-Headed Shark Attack was made by this group called the Asylum, and the Asylum mostly were known for making knockoff versions. That's why I thought Snake Out of Compton was probably made by them, but I don't think it was.
It's better than that.
But the Asylum just make this sort of horseshit, and they made Sharknado, and this film must have had some degree of success. I imagine it was just shown on the TV, but the reason I say that is because there's 4 sequels.
You are kidding.
No, there's a 3-headed shark. They add.
Oh, they add a head each time.
They add a head each time. I really quite like that.
Oh gosh.
So there's a 3-headed shark attack made in 2015, and that one's got Danny Trejo and Rob Van Dam.
Why didn't we watch that one?
But then, for some reason, they skip the 4-headed shark attack because they made 2 more: the 5-headed shark attack and the 6-headed shark attack, and they're planning
a
7-headed shark attack.
Off.
But I don't know, why didn't they make a 4-headed shark attack? What was wrong with 4 heads? 4 skin.
Yeah. No, I was just like, have you said something? No.
So yeah, I mean, it hasn't made me feel. I've watched a couple of Asylum films in the past, and I've always kind of found them vaguely entertaining.
Yeah.
In that same way, but this was made at a very bad time. I mean, like you say, it's surprising that it was 2012 because it appears to be a film that was made
way
in
earlier.
like 2001 or 2. But it is dreadful.
I don't feel like my thirst for a kind of enjoyable shit film was quenched.
We need to go back to Breen. I agree. So, what score do you want to give to
Oh god,
Shark
a
Attack?
solid 0 actually. I mean, IMDb gives it a 2.5. That's probably the lowest rated film I've watched for a long time.
I think that you searched lowest rated film.
No, I really didn't.
That's how you found this film.
I think I looked up worst films of the and then just picked a year.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I ended up on this, but
because this was the worst film of 2012.
I don't know if it was. I don't think well, who knows? No, I got absolutely nothing from this. 0. Rubbish film.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 0 as well.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That might be juice.
Anyway,
I think the least said about it, the better.
Yeah.
It is on YouTube. I'll put it on the playlist, but
Enjoy.
Don't fucking watch it. So I'm going to play an old song now. This is by an old band from Vancouver called Submission Hold. They're from the sort of late 90s, very early noughties, I think. This is from an album called Sackcloth and Ashes, The Ostrich Dies on Monday. Which I think is a really fucking great name for an album.
Amazing.
It came out back in the day on Ebullition, but they did have a couple of releases on a UK label called Flat Earth. This is a fucking great band. They were a really strange sounding band. It's like a bit of a crusty kind of hardcore band, but they had like flutes and trumpets and all sorts of weird shit going on in the background. This is, I think, my favourite song of theirs. I found it quite difficult to pick which one really encapsulated their sound, and they're all so batshit crazy that it was really difficult to find one. But I'd really suggest listening to them. But this song is called Tuesday Evening at the Dinner Table. So here it is. This is Submission Hold.
The food grew cold. We sat across the table. He said, cut up your hair. They're always poking at things. They might touch me. I said, yes. I said, yes. I said, yes. I said, yes.
this episode of Breakfast Punks podcast. We've come to the end now. Be sure to follow us on all of the social medias and stuff to
We
keep
don't
up
have
to
all
date.
of the social medias.
Actually, we do only have Instagram.
Yeah.
Please follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel because Dave puts a lovely playlist together of all of the stuff mentioned. The Secret Rulers of the World episodes will be on there. The wonderful Two-Headed Shark Attakk will be on there. So you know, there's lots to drink in there. So yeah, and be sure to email us with any feedback or anything you think should be mentioned, or if we should look into, or shout outs or anything. shamcityroasters@gmail.com is the best way to get in contact, or you can message us on Breakfast Punks podcast Instagram.
And if this is the first time that you've listened to us, thank you and welcome, but go back and listen to our other episodes. We're getting a few now. We're up to 12.
I know.
I'm not sure that we realised it was going to go on this long. But...
It's just crazy. I said to someone this morning at the gym that, oh yeah, I'm recording the podcast later today. She's like, are you still doing that? I was like, yeah.
I think maybe people have forgotten about it.
Yeah, we are still
That's
doing it.
listenership down the fucking drain.
Oh,
isn't it?
stop it! But you know, it's good for us to keep doing this. And if you've got stuff, you know, part of the reason we're doing this is to like learn about other stuff and to kind of like widen our experience of the world.
And
So,
Two-Headed Shark Attakk, definitely.
I mean,
did that.
yeah, fuck yeah. But if you've got any recommendations for stuff to look into or films to watch or anything like that, please let us know because we love learning new shit, and that's the whole point of this.
Yeah, and just generally thanks for listening. We really appreciate
Exactly. We love you all. Thank you.
it. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. I think we can say that with some certainty now.
I know, it's weird, isn't it?
We're on a bit of a roll. So every other Thursday,
Area Thursday.
this thing appears
Yeah.
on Spotify and YouTube.
And various other
Oh, yeah,
podcast,
actually, loads of-
places wherever
loads of
you're
other
usually
places,
listening.
yeah.
Wherever you're listening to it now, I'm sure you can hear it there again.
And if you want to really help us out, you could help us out by sharing us on your social medias generally. Share us on Facebook and things like that. Also, if you're listening to this on like iTunes, I don't think you can do it on Spotify, but if you fancy giving us a review or like just like clicking 5 stars,
I didn't know you could do that.
I think that helps. That's my
Ooh.
understanding.
Don't like being judged.
No, you don't have to say anything if you want, and you can be honest. But I think that helps us get more listenerships if we get a few ratings.
All about the listenerships. So yeah, we'll wrap that up with a final song for our episode. This song is from Vampire Slumber Party, and the song is called Northern Lights. Vampire Slumber Party is a one-person band. It's Yusuf from South London. This is the second single from the upcoming new album Funeral Pop, and yeah, it's a little party banger. Give it a little listen. Dance away in your wherever you're listening to this. I hope it's your lounge, but if you're outside, do a really big dance. Really big dance.
Particularly if you're outside in a public
Definitely.
place. If you're on a train,
you
have to dance. You have to dance.
If you've got space for a cartwheel, do one right now when this song starts.
Ideally one arm.
A one-arm cartwheel? I can do one now.
Can you?
Yeah.
Good for you.
I'll do one now.
I can't do a 2-arm cartwheel.
Me and David are going to do cartwheels in our lounge to this song. You should need to do a cartwheel wherever you are.
So if there's never another episode of Breakfast Punks podcast,
You
it's
know.
because one of us or both of us is dead
There you
from
go.
doing a cartwheel and landing on our head.
So there we go, guys.
So with that in mind, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time, possibly.
See you in 2 weeks, maybe. This is Vampire Slumber Party with Northern Lights.
Bye.
Bye.